One. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you're getting this information. My name is Rafael Vasquez, and this is your show, Líderes del Futuro. Today, I have the privilege and opportunity to interview Jeremy Castro, an attorney who specializes in working with the communities that are migrant. And so, welcome, Jeremy. Thank you for
Thank you.
accepting the invitation to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about, right, when we talk about attorneys, there's so many pieces. There's immigration attorneys, there are divorce attorneys, there are real estate, so on and so forth. What is your specialty?
So I would describe what I do as I'm primarily a family law attorney. I do have an immigration attorney on staff in my office, and she's primarily an immigration attorney. She does a little bit of family law. And with me, I do mostly family law and a little bit of immigration. In terms of the immigration that I do, I mostly focus on what's called Special Immigrant Juvenile Status. And what that is, it's a program that's available to youth, migrant youth who are here in the country presently. And basically, those children or those minors, to qualify for that program and for that sort of immigration relief, they have to be under 21 years old. And then they have to have been either abused, abandoned, or neglected by one or both parents. And what that means is they have to qualify under state law under either of those three criteria or either one of those three bases. And so basically, the way the process starts is the way I usually explain it to my clients is I say it's a two-step process, right? So first we have to start in state court, which is what I'm very familiar with because I'm a family law attorney and I practice all in state court. So the process starts in state court. You can either be in family court and probate court, or you can be in dependency or juvenile delinquency court. But I don't focus on those last two. I just focus on family court and probate court. And you would file your petition for either a divorce, for custody or support of the children, or you can file a domestic violence restraining order. Or you would file a petition for guardianship. And through that petition, you would also include a request for the court to make what's called the Special Immigrant Juvenile findings. And so with those findings, you would go through and you would take those findings that the court made in the state court, and you would file that with USCIS in the federal court, and you would basically request that they approve your I-360, which is what you would file based on those findings. And that's basically in a nutshell how the SIJS process works. It's a two-step process. So first we start in state court, and then after we get the order that we need from the state court, we go ahead and we file with USCIS.
Definitely. And so it's important for individuals to understand that if they have been, again, abused, neglected by their dad or their mom, that there is some type of support. There's some possible relief with immigration. And so sometimes students that I work with or children out there in the community who are undocumented, they say, well, I'm here living with my aunt. My mom and my dad are in our home country. It could be Mexico or Nicaragua or some other country. Does that child, could that child qualify for this specific status?
Well, most likely, I would say that if there's any child or any minor who's under 21 living in the United States without one or both of their parents, I definitely think that they should, seek an immigration attorney who can provide them with a consultation, because these cases are very, very fact specific. And so there's a lot of questions that are specific to these children and the way the parents treated them or the parents' behavior that would allow me to determine whether they are eligible for this immigration relief. And so a lot of people I've found don't even know about this type of relief.
Mm-hmm.
And, abuse is pretty easy to understand what abuse is. if one or both of the parents hit the child with a belt or with their hands or with their fist, or even if the child was present in a domestic violence situation in which one parent was perpetrating domestic violence against the other, I typically make the argument that that is abuse, because it happens so close in proximity and time and to the child. And if they were exposed to that, especially if the child started crying or showed some sort of signs that they were affected by the domestic violence they observed, I typically say that that also qualifies for abuse. And I also include that in my argument for neglect, because you're placing the child at risk, right? So if one parent's abusing the other parent in the presence of the child, it's very likely that that child could be hurt, right? And that's what neglect is. So as far as abandonment, a lot of the times, the most common situation that we see is that, the child's here in the United States and the parent that's in their home country doesn't provide any sort of financial support, right? So obviously they can't, because the means and the ability for them to do so is close to none. But regardless, under the California state law, if a parent doesn't provide financial support to their child for, I believe it's 1 year or more, the court can make that finding that the child's been abandoned. Another finding that the court can make is for abandonment is if one of the parents hasn't communicated meaningfully with the child for, I believe it's also 1 year or more. So just because there's a child here in the United States and the parent calls maybe once a year to say hi or happy birthday, that doesn't necessarily mean that the child hasn't been abandoned. So there has to be some sort of meaningful contact with the child.
Yeah, and that's where it also, again, for listeners or people who are watching the video, it is important for people to understand that there's so many complexities and many possibilities for someone to qualify for this specific status, including maybe there is child support payments that needed to be made and they haven't been made in a long period of time, right? So one of the parents is not being responsible financially.
Yeah, that's something that typically every once in a while we'll see a support order from a foreign country that hasn't been paid. But sometimes we'll also see support orders when both parents are present in the United States and those payments haven't been made in years and years and years. And so that's a good argument for abandonment and even neglect, because that parent hasn't been providing that child with all his basic necessities, right? Housing, food, shelter, clothes, medical attention. So just because one of the parents is in the United States or even both parents doesn't necessarily mean that they're not going to qualify. So that's why I say it's a very, very, fact intensive type of a case.
Definitely. The last example I'll mention is the mom that came over and saw me years ago. It's probably 5-6 years ago. And while we were talking about DACA and whether or not her children would qualify, this came up that the husband one day left and never came back, and eventually just sent a text saying that he was with a different family now and he was going to stay with his new family. And there was never child support provided. There was no attempt to provide child support or anything else. And then mom found out when she went to file her taxes that he was still claiming the children in the taxes, even though he wasn't providing any type of support for the children. And he did that for 4 years. And so again, it's like you're not supporting your children, yet you're still using their information to claim them as dependents in your taxes, right? So I remember once I was told that, I referred them to an attorney because it was completely unacceptable for that situation to happen. And again, both parents were living in the United States, both parents were living in California, but one of the parents completely abandoned his children and was still using their information to be able to benefit from it when
Yeah,
filed in Texas.
I think that's just more of a family law issue than it is a immigration one, regardless of whether he's claiming those kids on his taxes or not. Doesn't really matter because the fact of the matter is that he hasn't been providing them with
Yeah.
anything. So that a situation like that, it's not really a make or break it type of case. So
So the abandonment issue here is where he left for 4 years and he wasn't providing for the children at all.
where he left for 4 years, no contact,
Yeah.
no payment, no support, not even a hi or hello,
Yeah.
or even if that was the case, if it was once a year, that would still not really
Not-
be,
Yeah.
So
Good. So again, in those situations, again, personally, at least for Sonoma County, I suspect that there are close to 300 individuals, youth under the age of 21, that qualify for a special immigrant juvenile status just based on the many conversations and the many years of interacting with immigrant families in this county. And again, this message or radio show goes out to multiple counties. So again, it is important that you pay attention. It is important that you listen to what the attorney is saying. And then if you believe that there is a likelihood that you meet the criteria, contact an attorney. Make sure it's somebody who knows about the special immigrant juvenile status and not just anyone who doesn't specialize in this. And as a result of that, in this situation, we have attorney Jeremy Castro. Can you tell us where you are located so that people may be able to reach out to you?
yeah, so my name is Jeremy Castro. My firm name is Castro Law Offices, and we're located in Novato, 1682 Novato Boulevard, Suite 340 in Novato, California. And the phone number here, if you guys need to call us, is 415-432-9866.
If you can repeat that phone number, we usually like to give people enough time so they can go and get that piece of paper and pen. If you can give us the number again.
Yeah, so the phone number here is 415-432-9866. Our entire staff is fully bilingual, including myself. So I think that's a very important part of this process, right? Because in order to get the facts that we need from the clients to ensure that they're going to be successful in the state court portion of the SIJS process, it's very important that the attorney can understand and communicate with these clients, because like I said earlier, it's a very, very fact intensive type of a case. And so we have to be able to distill everything down, write a very good declaration for the client, go over the declaration with the client, and make sure that there's not any changes or revisions that need to be made.
Definitely. And again, I invite you to come back to the show. There's multiple things that you focus on as far as the law practice that you have. But today we just wanted to talk about special immigrant juvenile status. So I want to thank you for taking the time and being with us here on Líderes del Futuro on KBBF 89.1 FM and on the web at kbbf.org. Thank you, Jeremy, for taking the time and being with us.
Thanks, Rafael, for having me. Thank you.